Hello, this is the Overcoming Resistance podcast, and I am your host, Louis Carell, with my co host, Sean Mahoney. This podcast is about improving both physically and mentally when it comes to training and fitness. Our goal is to share tools that have helped us overcome the resistance we all face inside and outside of training when it comes to achieving our fitness related goals. We are two guys with over a decade of in the trenches experience when it comes to getting stronger, building muscle, and getting leaner, as well as helping others do the same. We do our best to blend this experience with evidence-based practices in a way that integrates it all into our busy lives. We hope you find the things that have helped us and our peers useful as you join us on this never-ending journey. Welcome, everyone. So today we thought we would talk about a pretty important topic, one that I don't think enough people talk about in the industry, which is finding meaning in training. And so kind of what this means to me is kind of like your why for training. Like, why do you go to the gym? Why do you do what you do? Because if you're a new person starting out, knowing why you want to train can help you set goals, can help you provide guidance towards what you're going to do in the beginning, help you find, a reason for doing this whole process. And if you're an experienced person that's maybe finding it hard to find that spark or that enjoyment in training, you're kind of lost, not really sure what you should be doing, maybe getting back to that core reason for why you do this can help you reignite, some of that passion and help you actually figure out, well, maybe what you're doing right now isn't aligned with what you ultimately want to be doing, and can help you set some goals. So, Sean, I kind of gave my definition for what I think finding meaning in training is and why it matters, and kind of why that's important for people. Do you agree? Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. It's why you're even going to the gym, why you even want to diet, bulk, cut, what's your whole reason? But, a lot of average gym goers just go to the gym to be healthy with no specific goals. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That is kind of a specific goal, really, to know they should strength train to be healthy. But you can, I guess, finesse those goals too if you're going to take it more seriously. Remember when I was a beginner, I just didn't like how I looked. I was kind of that skinny fat, I guess you call it, right? And,
Yeah.
everyone around me, all my friends were lifting, so I was like, I'll start lifting. And that's my only goal, was to start just going to the gym even.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I was the same way, man. Skinny fat kid, just wanted to get in shape, look better, press girls, all that stuff. So, the original goal was just to work out. And, first thing I had to do was look up, like, well, how do you look better? Okay, you lose body fat and you build muscle. So how do I do that? Oh, I got to eat a lower calorie diet generally. I got to eat some more protein and I got to lift some weights. So my why for training at that time was, pretty straightforward, just look better. And then I had to set some goals. Okay, so I want to lose some weight and I want to build some muscle. So I had to then find the training that aligned with it. And I enjoyed that process for many
Yeah.
years until I didn't. And then eventually I got into strength training real heavy. I started to enjoy that. And my why evolved into, wanting to be really, really strong. Um, you know, your
Yeah.
journey, from what I know, pretty similar, right? I mean, it started with that kind of that base, and then it evolved.
Yep. And got into strength training, got into, competitive powerlifting. I cared more about being strong. I still have this underlying body dysmorphia where I wanted to look good. I didn't look like a great 220. I was built. People knew I lifted. I didn't look good, but I was strong as fuck. I had a world record squat and everything. But the way you so simply put those basic goals, how to meet those goals, eat more protein, eat less calories, go weight train, it's so simple. And that's really all there is to it. But when I first started, it wasn't that simple. I read that same damn thing, but in my mind, it wasn't simple because I had too many goals. I wanted to get bigger, more muscular, but I wanted to be shredded. I wanted to lift every day. and I did high volume 6 7 days a week, but you made it so simple there, and it really is that simple. But when you have too many goals, it's not that simple. So I just want to touch on that, because the more experienced we are, the more we look to simplify things. But when you're a beginner, it isn't that simple, because you kind of want to just do everything.
I think that's a great point to especially focus on, especially for people who are new, or even some experienced people who find themselves kind of being torn between maybe opposing things or too many things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. Put it super simple, but when you're in the moment, in the shoes of the person, it's not, because, you, like you said, you want to do all those things. And I think that's maybe why for a lot of people, new and experienced, taking a moment to really think about what your meaning in training is, why do you do it, and what your why is, really does direct those goals, right? I mean, unless you've won that genetic lottery, it's going to be tough to get shredded, get big, get really strong,
Yeah.
all at once out the gate. It's going to be tough. Maybe you're a new person getting into the gym and you're like, you see the people on Instagram and YouTube and you're like, man, that's super cool. I want to be jacked. I want to be strong. I want to be big. A lot of those guys have been training for 5 10 years. So they did things in phases. They didn't do those things all at once. So yeah, figuring out what your why is and maybe what your most pressing whys are. Maybe you have multiple things you want to do, but what's the most pressing now? Right. So when you're a new person, like you said, it can be overwhelming because you want to do so many things. But if your most pressing thing is, oh, I want to look better, then maybe right now is not the time to try to get as strong as possible.
Bingo.
Maybe right now it's the time to focus on trying to look better. Then maybe once you look closer to maybe what you think you want to look like or better, then maybe at that point you can try to go, okay, so maybe now is a good time to put this other goal on pause. And now it's time to try to get stronger. Maybe sectioning those things off. Because I think one of the beauties of fitness is there are so many avenues to go down, which can kind of be paralysis by analysis when you first start off, or when you're switching goals or finding new goals if you're an experienced person. But it's beautiful in the way, because I've been training for about 15 years. I know you've been training a long time. It gives you a lot of avenues to explore, because if you do one thing for a long time, the closer you get to wherever your limits are, the less you really progress. And I'm a progress driven person. Some people, maybe they are too, or maybe they just enjoy doing the activity. If you just like squatting heavy, regardless of what's on the bar, go squat heavy. It doesn't matter if you're really getting stronger, right? As long as it's heavy for you. I do like, just doing things, but I do like progression. For me, that's something I find a lot of joy. And so if I've been strength training for 10 years, maybe I'm not getting stronger so readily, but man, maybe I'm really bad at running. So I can just start running, and then that's another avenue I can get better. But, I think it's great that there's so many avenues to explore, but I'm with you that you don't want to explore all of them right now.
Yeah.
So having that why, that thing to come back to, can help you align the things you're doing now as close as possible to what you really want. And I think this is a core aspect of goal setting too, which I know you wanted to talk about today a little bit, which is that aspect of goal setting.
Yeah. And I think you described your why and what makes you want to, your meaning in training, because you just said progress. You mentioned when you get towards that peak strength, it's harder to progress, and you like progress. So that's why you've explored so many different avenues. And it sounds like that might be your meaning in training is progress. And I kind of think of some of the top tier powerlifters, their meaning to all of it is to be on that top level. So they're not having, that consistent progress. They might get a 2.5 pound addition on their bench over a span of a year, which to us and any normal person, I'm like, I'm going to move on to something else now and stay moving. But to a person driven towards that goal, that's their meaning for it. And I think it's okay for us to have all these different meanings and reasons for going into it, even if it is to, like you said, you went from, bodybuilding and looking good and powerlifting, and now you're doing a lot more body weight stuff, but you're progressing in whatever avenue you've chosen. So I think that's the differences, and why we choose to do things.
Yeah, I mean, for a new person starting out, why you start may not be why you continue.
Yep.
And why you continue will probably evolve over time for anyone who's experienced and kind of finding a lull. Don't be afraid to dig deep into that question. Think about what it is you really want going forward. And don't forget to consider your life too. Life changes as we get older, and our time, our priorities. So maybe your why for training maybe could shift a little bit to better fit within your life, right? As things change. I mean, I think if we were to give a skeleton for people, this would be my personal way I would approach it, and the way I've had to approach it recently. And we can talk about maybe some of our personal journeys with this topic as of late, because I know we both changed a lot of our training whys recently. Is first, just think about, well, if you're a new person, why do you want to train? If you're an experienced person and you're lost, maybe think about why you started training. Then you can think about, well, why did you start training? If you're, an experienced person, does that still match why you want to train now? What you're currently doing? Did you lose sight of that? Maybe it is. For me, I always wanted to look good. And like you, I was a chunky 220 man. I mean, people knew I lifted and I was strong, but I did not look the way I wanted to look. That always ate at me for years, but my main goal at that time was to be strong. So I let go of the physique goal a little bit to compensate for being as strong as possible. But when I stepped away from competing in powerlifting, I had to actually sit down and go, okay, so what is the why? I started wanting to look good. Did I get away from that? Well, yeah, I definitely lost sight of that to some degree when I got into powerlifting. I was eating a lot of junk food, gained a lot of body weight. So then I gave me a quick refocus. Like, well, you know what? Why I started training still is a why for me now. So, okay, let's go ahead and focus on that. And so my diet training started to align. And, that's a quick personal story. And then that's had to evolve over time as the further I've gotten away from competing in powerlifting, the more I've had to separate myself from that previous identity as a power lifter to fully take on the why that I have now, which my main why, as you said, it definitely encompasses progress. So anything I do, I want to make sure I'm progressing to some degree because I enjoy that. It gives me enjoyment in the day-to-day process. If you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to stick with it. Yeah. I mean, it's the simplest thing.
You need to have some sort of success to want to keep going back. You go in there and just feel like a constant failure. It's not fun. You're not going to go back.
No, you definitely want some process you enjoy. And I guess my why now is simply, one, making training a part of my life and not my life. When I compete in powerlifting, I very much rotated my life around my training. Yeah. I'm older, relationships, life, work, career. Now I strive to enjoy the training I do, make progress in avenues that I can make progress in, and fit training into my life. And as long as my training generally reflects that, I'm okay with most configurations.
Yeah.
To be honest. And that's my personal story. And I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I think kind of really your process. Described well with shifting goals. It's okay to sacrifice in some avenues in order to progress in one goal. So we kind of sacrifice, looking phenomenal and being super low body fat so we could be stronger, and then we can always adapt our goals and have different goals, and that's part of the reason why we go to the gym. So I started lifting, just doing everything in the gym. So I didn't have one specific goal. I wanted to be big, I wanted to be lean, I wanted to be strong, but the more experience you get, that's when you need to be very specific and pick a lane. But I had an immature lifting mindset then. But at the same time, I think that's okay for a beginner, because as a beginner, you can kind of get away for a certain period of time with those, they always call the newbie gains, but I totally believe it. You can pretty much go in there and do whatever, and you're gonna benefit somehow. Maybe part of that is maybe doing that as part of your growth and, part of maturing as a lifter.
Not only that, if you're new, you got to figure out what you like.
Yeah.
You might have an idea of what you want to achieve, but there's a lot of ways to achieve a goal.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I agree with you. If you're a newer person, play. If you're an experienced person and you're kind of stuck, play. Do both. Yeah, everybody should,
And that's what I did. I played, and then I'm like, I like lifting. Everyone's like, oh, you got to do like 8 to 12 reps or 12 reps or more. I'm like, I didn't like doing more than 6. I'm like, I really like training to be strong. And then I started taking that seriously. I think it's Jim Windler's 5-3-1. I jumped on that. I'm like, oh, I really like doing, these heavy sets of 3. And then started getting curious in powerlifting. And so I started taking powerlifting seriously. And like 2-3 weeks after my second kid was born, like in a super stressful part of my life, I squatted a world record. I squatted 725, at 220 as a drug-free world record. But I was making sacrifices for that goal. I'm not willing to make those kind of sacrifices now. I met my goal. Got kids growing up. I had a career change. My job kicks my ass. I'm tired. So I've adjusted my goal to just looking good and being subjectively strong. My volume is just slashed more than half, but less time in the gym, but I still train hard as hell. I'm not the leanest I've ever been. I'm not the strongest I've ever been, but I'm content and happy with the progress I'm making. But my whole purpose and meaning in lifting and being healthy is all the same. I wanted to be healthy. I want to be strong, and I want to look good. And right now I have a decent mix of all of that, but I can always adjust my goals. If I find a point where I miss competing and miss that mindset, that door isn't closed, and when life allows and my mindset allows, I can always change my goal without losing sight of, my main purpose of wanting to be a lifter.
Yeah. So I like that. I like, we have some similar journeys, but it's really, for me, it's taking in, what is it you want to achieve? What do you enjoy? And then what does your life allow? And then setting goals that kind of fit into all of those appropriate vectors and then going for them. Right. And sometimes the goal might just be maintaining, and sometimes the goal might be progressing in an area. But, I think for a new person, figure out why do you want to go to the gym, and then figure out some goals that make sense, that are realistic, right? Don't do everything at once. Go play, find out what you like, have fun, and then find some ways to achieve your goals through the avenues that fit with your reason for going and what you enjoy, that fits your life. For an experienced person, if you're finding a lot of friction like we were, maybe it's time to reevaluate what you have available for training with context to your life. Maybe it's time to rethink about, is what you're doing, did you get swept up in some momentum that maybe doesn't align with the why? Right? Maybe if you want to be lean and jacked, being a super heavyweight powerlifter might have been far away from that original goal, right? You want to, I got in the gym to be in shape, healthy, and fit. It's like, well, you can't walk up a flight of stairs without being out of breath because you're afraid to do any cardio because it might hurt your strength training. I think you got swept up in some momentum on the side here. I think you lost sight of the original reason you were doing it. So don't take some time to reflect. If you're stuck, go play. I mean, as you brought up, I went from bodybuilding training to powerlifting training to now I do a mix of bodybuilding, calisthenics, body weight, and very little powerlifting here and there when I get the itch. I went and played, found out I like body weight training, and there's a whole new vector for me to have fun with in the gym. Have that fun, play. And then I think the last part really for each of us, for me, it was a big one, was the aspect of identity. If somebody ever wants to think about habit forming, which is pretty crucial for this process, right? I mean, part of meaning and habits and goals, I think encompasses the concept of identity. Atomic Habits.
Yeah, James Clear.
James Clear is a great book for anyone that's looking for something to read about
Yeah,
habit forming. But I know I had to break the identity of being a powerlifter to evolve into who I am today, to
yeah,
rediscover my love and passion for training. What about you? I mean,
yeah. I'm thinking like if a stranger came up and asked you right now, and they said, "I don't know what I should be doing here in the gym. Like I go in the gym, I just kind of feel lost and feel like I'm spinning my wheels." And I think if you'd ask them, what do you want? Do you want to be strong? Do you want to be jacked? And I say most guys are gonna be like, yeah, I want to be jacked. So then, referencing James Clear, we can say, well, what are the habits and traits that a jacked person has? I'm like, all right, well, that person goes to the gym 3 to 5 days a week, and they train for hypertrophy and they eat high protein. So those are the things you need to embody doing to reach that goal. So if you can just identify what you want to be, really, you can reverse engineer like how to get there.
yeah, I think you explained it about as clear as you possibly can, right? And if you're trying to get out, if you find yourself identifying as something that's conflicting with where you're trying to go, then you also need to somewhat reverse engineer, right? You have to
Yeah,
discover like, well, what am I identifying? Oh, well, I identify as a powerlifter. Yeah, but I don't want to live the life of a powerlifter. I don't want to embody all the habits of a powerlifter. I'm trying to embody these new habits because that's going to align better with the reason I want to be training now. So this is more of a talk for an experienced person, but so it's like, okay, so I have to learn to break the identity of being the powerlifter, no longer identify as that. Then, like you said, figure out what you want, which is part of our discussion here, finding that why, and then find a way to identify as that, then let those habits and that process help carry you forward.
exactly.
For me, it was I identified as a powerlifter. So then I had to just identify myself as a guy who likes to be jacked and in shape. Well, it's a lot broader, but what encompasses, like you said, the habits of somebody who wants to be jacked and in shape? Well, I should probably do some cardio,
Yeah,
be in shape, do some running or something. I should probably lift some weights a couple times a week, be lifting, getting stronger, progressing, eating a high protein diet, watching my calorie intake, not getting too, heavy in body fat, right? So all those things, now those are all aligned with my current whys, but I found an identity that aligned where my previous identity wasn't serving me. So, it can be easy to get swept up in an identity because usually with identity comes community. And when you're
yeah,
surrounded a lot of people, and this can be good for new people. If you're a new person, say you want to get into being strong, find a powerlifting gym.
exactly.
Quickest way that you're going to get stronger is to develop all that process is just jump in with the rest, jump in with that
Yeah,
community.
and I think that you had some problems with that too because you're going to a powerlifting gym and then you started kind of changing what you're doing there, and just kind of hard habits to break.
That was a lot of friction for me as an experienced lifter. This is, for an experienced person, that was a lot of friction. I had to switch. Now I just go to a commercial gym. And I'm gonna be honest, I love the environment more. As odd as that is for me to say, I've always loved local mom and pop gyms,
Yeah,
hardcore, but I definitely, switched over to a more commercial gym with people that do all sorts of goals.
yeah,
And it's been great because it's removed that friction point for the identity aspect to allow me to
yeah,
really chase my meaning. I know you've done the same, right? You had some of those similar
yeah.
things when you transitioned. So, I know you got to go here soon, but maybe we can try to give a step by step. So run me through your process. If you were to talk to a new person, maybe we can run that through. We'll run through a new person, an
Okay.
experienced person. So if you were to talk to a new person and they're trying to be like, okay, I'm getting to the gym, I'm going to start this process, just help them get from the beginning of questions down to now you know your goal. Let's go for it.
Okay, so I feel like most people are going to say, I'm going to start weightlifting in the gym just because they know they're supposed to. We're told that we should do X amount of cardio a week, X amount of strength training a week to have a healthy life. So maybe that's their only reason so far for even walking into a gym. Doesn't matter if it's powerlifting gym, a commercial gym, Planet Fitness, whatever. But what are they going to do once they get in there? I'm like, well, what do you want to become? Because it's all about changing. Well, some people may not have, big long-term goals. They might just, I just want to be healthy. Well, if they're just saying that, then I would just say, maybe not being specific with, training splits or something like that, but just find the things in the gym, machines or movements that you find enjoyable to do, to progress on, that makes you keep coming back, and eat, healthy. Now, if someone has a more specific goal, like I want to be jacked, brand new, they just want to be jacked. It's kind of the same. I want to tell you to find a split using exercises and movements that you find joy in, because if you find joy in it, you're going to be more driven to progress in it. And I would say try not to be too specific, start eating more protein and start adding reps and or weight on some of the lifts over time. And then you can worry about more finer details down the line when you become more advanced, but just focus on progressing and eating in a way that's going to support a goal. I wouldn't say to start drastically bulking or cutting, but I would align your diet to meet those health goals, fruits and veggies and more protein, whatever carb and fat sources you want, but to be more generalist for a beginner.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the example of the person who wants to get jacked and the person who just wants to be healthy, I think that's great because it gives people examples of what this process might look like. Because really, we're kind of coming back to what we've been saying repeatedly, which is figure out why you want to do it, find the identity that aligns with that why, and then what are the habits that identity would encompass, right? That for that person. So you gave an example for a healthy person, it'd be exercising a couple times a week, doing some cardio, doing some resistance training, eating a good diet, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats, all the stuff that we see advertised.
Yeah.
And then, for the person who wants to get jacked, if you are that, right, to give a separate example, I liked your overview, which is basically, okay, so you got to lift weights, find the type of movements you enjoy that feel good, focus on progressing, because that's what a jacked person would do. And then start aligning your diet with what would be a diet that would typically encompass to build muscle, more protein, control your calories by eating fruits, vegetables, healthy foods. And I think, for a new person, great starting point. And it really helps them go from why do I want to do it to what should I kind of be doing? Don't forget to play a little bit, figure it out, find an identity that aligns with that. Then that allows you to start progressing towards your why. And then you can worry about setting some goals once you kind of just get a little bit of rhythm.
And what you said earlier, I would prefer a beginner to just have some very general guidance, because eventually they're going to be more comfortable, know their way around more. And what you said earlier, they're going to play more. Once you play more, you're going to be able to set your own specific goals, and you've grown a bit more to be able to figure out what habits do you need to partake in to meet these new goals you have.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great place for a beginner. If I had to think about what I would tell an experienced person, you've probably worked out a lot of these details you've already talked about. If you're in a rut, think about why it is you want to train now. If what you're doing isn't aligning with it, start finding how to get that training aligned with what you want to do, what you want it to be. And if you have to, remove the friction of identity change, like we talked about. If you're a powerlifter, if you're identified as a powerlifter at a powerlifting gym, but you don't want to be a powerlifter, maybe you got to find another place to train. Doesn't mean you have to never train there again or lose all those connections and friendships, but you want to remove the friction of the identity shift. You want to think about, why do you want to train now? What is it that you love? rediscovering that and just maybe thinking about that question, and whatever that takes you, be open to playing again like you did when you began and finding those new avenues. If you're completely lost and all you know is, I just don't want to do this thing I'm doing, but I don't know what I want to be doing, play. That's my best advice. Go play, explore, look up all other avenues of fitness. There's plenty of cardio, body weight, powerlifting, bodybuilding. Go out and explore,
Yeah,
see what's
people
out
want to
there.
shit on program hopping and everything like that. For the most part, like if you're a powerlifter and you're just program hopping, powerlifting program to powerlifting program, yeah, you're not going to progress. But if you're lost and you need to play around and figure out what you really want to do, then like you were saying, just try different things. Like
Yeah,
you may not have a lot of short-term progression in your goals, but it's better than staying in a rut, because either way you're, where you're really going to go, you're going to make more progress trying new things in the long run.
exactly. And I guess you could make the goal in of itself as finding that next avenue that gives you some enjoyment in the process. That could be the goal.
Yeah.
So the program hopping actually does lead to the goal, because the closer you get to finding the things that you now enjoy, if you're in a rut, the closer you get to that is you making progress towards that goal. It may not be easily as measurable, a little more subjective, less objective, but that's okay. Because we're talking about something here where it's mostly subjective. It's just kind of finding the thing that drives you to do all of this, because it's a long process. You're only going to make great results by doing it for a long time over a long period with a lot of consistency. And that's going to change based on, like we talked about, what you enjoy, what you have access to, what your lifestyle allows, where you're at. And just be open to that change, and don't be afraid to sit down, explore, and take some time to play. I think that's the best way I could close this episode out.
Exactly. I agree.
Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating and review wherever you are listening, if you are listening to the audio-only version of this podcast. If on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please let us know if you did or didn't like the episode, and all feedback is helpful. We will be releasing another episode 2 weeks from now. You can find us at Overcoming Resistance on YouTube and at overcoming_resistance on Instagram. Have a great day and take care.